So you shouldn't have to make people click to a different page to figure out what you do. They should be able to concisely see that on that home page. Also, maybe like a little quick snippet of summary of I offered this for these people and this for these people if it's two different paths or whatever it is your setup is. And then anything that can help pump up your credibility a little bit too. So that would be like any press features. So if you have any logos from press or testimonials.
If you're looking for a way to step your digital branding game all the way up, then this episode with Keshia White is just for you. Hey, this is Raina Campbell, your Chief Dream Driver, and welcome to the No Parking Podcast, where through conversations and discussions with creators like yourself, we'll find interesting approaches to help you take your dreams out of park, put them in drive, and ride towards success. Hey, Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 208. And I'm so excited for you all to hear from today's guest, Keshia White. We're going to be learning about how we can step our online branding game all the way up. We're going to be learning strategic marketing tips that we can use that will help us attract the audience and clients that we want. And we're also going to be learning the best way to revamp our online branding presence to make sure that it's more efficient and optimal for our brand goals. So let me tell you a little bit more about Keshia White. She is the founder of Keshia M. White Designs, which is the website and brand design agency that provides strategic and beautiful websites for women in coaching, speaking, and consulting. Keshia's specialty is that she helps her clients develop unique brand identities that communicate who they really are and also support the goals that they have for their businesses. So Keshia is going to be talking about how she made the switch from side hustler to doing this full-time as a full-time entrepreneur. We're also going to be learning digital branding must-dos when revamping our websites, when you should pay for a professional versus going the do-it-yourself route, and also how we can use social media to get results for our brands. This is definitely a hands-on episode, so a lot of the stuff that we're talking about you can implement along your own dream driving journey today, this week, this month. So be ready for that. And if you love this episode, I think that it has a lot of tips. So I'm going to ask you, please share it with someone, whether you're sharing it on Facebook, Instagram stories, wherever. Share this episode with a friend. You can find us on social media at Dreams and Drive across the board, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And also use the hashtag Dreams and Drive when sharing so that I can go in and engage with you and just give you guys shout outs, because I appreciate it every week when you are tagging someone, when you're forwarding it. You help grow the Dreams and Drive community. So keep on doing it. I really appreciate it. I have a big announcement as well. I alluded to this in last week's episode, but we are official. So Dreams and Drive is having a New York City happy hour meet and greet on July 26th from 4 to 7:30 p.m. And that's going to be at the Intersect by Lexus Space in Midtown Manhattan. If you want to come out, if you want to RSVP to come out, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/events, dreamsanddrive.com/events with an S. It's going to be very chill. You can buy happy hour drinks, specialty cocktails from 4 to 6 or only $9. And just come out. You know, it's going to be a great networking, great mingling. We have some past guests already who have RSVP'd. And my hope for this is that it's chill and you guys get to meet me, because a lot of you have wanted to have a New York City meetup for a long time. So I'm finally making it happen. So if you're available on July 26th, please come out. I'd really love to see you guys there. Just go to dreamsanddrive.com/events to RSVP. Before we get to the episode, I also want to say, make sure that you are subscribed. If this is your first time listening, don't make it be your last. Hit the subscribe button wherever you listen to Dreams and Drive, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, your favorite audio app. Wherever it is, make sure you hit subscribe so that you get notifications every time we have a new episode. All right, let's hear from Keshia. So, as you know, Keshia, the way I love to start our interviews off is really going back in time and talking about who we were as children, because I feel like that's a really important place in our lives. So if I had to describe Keshia if you had to describe Keshia as a young child, like what was inspiring you?
So I would say as a child, so I was definitely like that bookworm who was super into school for some reason, maybe because we lived in the country and there wasn't a lot going on, but...
You grew up in Atlanta or in Georgia?
Yeah, in Georgia, but in a smaller town outside of Atlanta called Noonan, Georgia. So we used to, just pretty much school, play outside. That was it. So I did a lot of reading and all of that. So.
All right. What was the dream for you back then?
So I would say back then, maybe partially because of the environment too. I used to want to be a teacher because I used to kind of play around with worksheets that like the teachers would pass out at school if they had like extra leftover worksheets or something, and try to come home because I was the older sister and make my sister sit down like we were in school and try to teach her materials or something. So, I wanted to be a teacher back then when I was a kid. So, yeah, but never ended up doing that once I grew up. But
I love when our guests share that, because I feel like it's funny, because I feel like I would have been like really good friends with all the guests that I have on the show, because when I was a kid, I used to want to be a teacher too. Like I used to make fake lesson plans and like have a little grade book and had a little like lunch. I used to collect lunch money from my stuffed animals, all this stuff. Like I was really into the art of teaching. And it's funny because now you are a teacher now, right? Like you help people build their brands online. So it's funny how that all kind of comes together as we get older.
It is, yeah. That's what I was kind of thinking. I'm like, I guess I'd teach a little bit, but just through online now instead of like the traditional classroom to kids kind of standpoint. So, yep.
So did you, what did you end up studying in college? Like as you were a young adult, what was the dream that you were making happen?
So when I was in school, I honestly, when I went off to college, I was just doing it because it was just what you were supposed to do per se. So I really didn't know, like, have any exposure, like still coming from that small town background, didn't really know a lot of different careers and different career options out there because my parents didn't even go to college. My dad went to like tech school and my mom, like, I think went for like a semester and left. But anyway, so I was just kind of like, okay, I guess I don't really like science or math or engineering. So it was almost like process of elimination. And I just ended up picking marketing and business for a major just because it seemed to be easier and it looked glamorous on TV kind of thing. But yeah, but I really didn't enjoy my classes or anything at all. I kind of was during this whole self-exploration of figuring out what did I like throughout my whole time in school and couldn't really figure it out until really after I got out in my first corporate job. I don't think I figured it out until then, like after I had already started working. But
did you feel like school was a waste of time and money? Because you went to Tuskegee, right?
I did, yeah. So yeah, I partially do feel like that because I don't know. I feel like I should have went somewhere maybe where they had more of like a stronger with like the online digital, I guess kind of like stuff what I'm doing now if they had like those kinds of programs because they didn't even have that as an option at Tuskegee. So it was like when you're looking at the list of majors, you're like, well, what are my choices? And
yeah.
Maybe if I would have seen it as a choice. Yeah. If I would have maybe seen it as an option back then. It could have been better, but it's okay. It was served its purpose, I guess, just to get me that first little job to get out of my parents' place after graduation. So, hey, it worked out. But
you mentioned that like you didn't really figure, you were in like this self-exploration stage and you didn't really figure it out to like those first jobs. Like what was that job or what did you figure out that you liked and you realized that you could get better at it? Yeah,
so when I was at my first job, real corporate, I had done a couple things before that, but when I finally got into corporate, it was through AT&T and I was just kind of super bored and just sitting there and like, oh my God, why am I here? And then I think I had got like a career coach and all this stuff because I was just like, can somebody help me? But I feel like even after working with the career coach, I still didn't really know. So I ended up, they had announced layoffs in our department one year. And then we pretty much were told to just show up to work every day and apply to jobs. And I was like, okay, well, at least they're giving us time and they're paying us. But at the same time, you can't spend the full 8 hours applying. So I was like, well, I already had this blog idea in the back of my mind to start a blog. So started playing around with the blog, like after I would apply to a few jobs and then play around on the blog and got more and more into designing the website part of it. And so I was like, okay, I think I kind of like this. And then I was kind of drawn towards the online business area anyway from looking at people like Marie Forleo. And I was like, oh, that's so cool.
What year was this?
Man, I think that was like maybe 2013, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's been a while, yeah. So probably like 2013, and I was just looking at her little show every Tuesday, like, oh, that's so cool. She has a flexible business. And then after I started the blogging and looked at the website and stuff. I'm like, that could be a business idea. So it kind of just sparked from there, just from organically trying something out.
What was your blog about?
Yeah, so back then it was just literally on just my personal interest. So it was more like a lifestyle blog. So I used to call it the Queen Life.
Listen, we all have like those digital presences back in the day that we don't want to tell anybody about, right? Like I have this YouTube channel. If you find it, you find it. But it's pretty embarrassing. I can't remember the password for the account. So I'm like, oh my God, I want to delete these videos.
Oh, to go take it down. Oh yeah, I think I did that last week with some old hair videos because I used to do hair sometimes or like food and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, it was just, I occasionally do a travel post or fashion with the little outfits I could pull together. But yeah, so it was fun. It was a nice creative outlet for sure.
Were you able to then find, like, I know you were saying you were applying for jobs. So how were you managing, working this corporate life and then also this new passion for like online web world?
So the company I went to when I first left AT&T, it was in tech. So I love tech, but it was sales. So I didn't realize it before I accepted the job, but they were all like, it was pretty much I'm talking about I didn't realize they had like this unspoken expectation that you were supposed to be prepping your call list at night after work. And I was wait, what? Because I was all planning on like getting into this web design certificate program in the evenings and I had already been kind of looking into that before I took the job and was kind of trying to play around with the blog and ramp that up a bit too. So I stayed there, I think only like 9 months. And I was like, okay, I'm out because I'm not making my call list at night. I have stuff to do. So I ended up with another company where it was super old school. It was like paper industry. So complete opposite of tech. So everything there moved super slow. And the day job life was, I don't know, it was super boring, I guess, at that point. But at the same time, we never had to take any work home. It was a predictable, easy schedule. So I could just go to my classes at night and not have to think about work. And have plenty of energy left over. So I don't know. So really for me to manage both, it just ended up being to switch to a job that was just less demanding on my time.
Yeah, I feel like that's smart because I feel like a lot of us sometimes feel like we either, some of us may feel bad for not wanting like a very demanding job, but because you knew what the ultimate goal was or you knew what the interest was that you wanted to pursue, it kind of was a win-win for you, right?
It was, yeah, because I didn't like the job I was doing either because it was, even though I like technology, but the sales aspect of it, I kind of like more of using the software, but I could never really get into that area. I was in the sales side, so I'm already like didn't like it that much. And then they wanted me to do extra, and I was like, well, my end goal anyway is to be doing this and selling this stuff all day isn't really getting me there. So yeah, like you said, just pivoting towards the end goal was definitely worth it for sure.
What kind of program were you taking on the side? Like, what kind of course were you taking at this point in time?
So I ended up finding one because I did some research in the Atlanta area because I know a lot of people are self-taught for web design, but I just needed somebody to ask questions. So I'm like, what if I get stuck? I need like a teacher to help me. So I found a few in the Atlanta area, pretty much kind of picked based on which one was cheaper after being in college, spending money. I'm like, I don't want to spend a lot on this. So I found one at a school here called Kennesaw State. And it was a little bit of a drive every day. Well, not every day. I think 2 days a week I went up there. So yeah, it was just a certificate program from like August to May. And they teach you everything from start to finish, a little bit of coding. And then you have your little classmates there who you can kind of have that camaraderie with. So yeah, I took that one. And then I took one more like a year later because I wanted to get stronger in design. So that one was at General Assembly where you just learn the design aspect. So I felt like after I took those two, then I was just ready to run with it then. So
do you feel like it was worth it actually getting a certificate program at an institution versus going the DIY route and trying to like, YouTube university yourself?
I feel like for my personality, because I always tell people like, think about your personality type. If you are like that discipline where you feel like you will kind of almost create your own curriculum almost, and you're going to go through it every day. But I needed like a structure for that particular aspect of it so I could know, okay, this week I'm going to learn how to come up with the logo concept. Next week we're going to learn colors. Next week we're going to learn fonts. Like just knowing that it's something that I can follow and build on. So to me, it was worth it. And it was way cheaper than college because Kennesaw, it was only like $5,000 for the whole program. So yeah, and that was it. So for me, it was worth it to have a guideline to go through.
Yeah, I was going to say that because, certificates are also things like I saw that you had that because you put it on your LinkedIn page. And like, it really is. When I think about college, like some classes, especially if you're a liberal arts like I was, they're not as like detail oriented. You don't really get all the, the knowledge that you need to. Whereas a certificate program goes really in depth in one field and you really feel like you learn everything you need to, right?
Yeah, because literally the process we learned in those classes, that's still like the design process part that I follow now with clients. The only thing I didn't learn was like the business stuff, like the project management tools and all that. But then I found like courses on the internet for that stuff. But yes, it was definitely worth it.
So what inspired you to, I know you said that you had this idea and you kind of were interested in wanting to go into design and web design, but what made you think that you could make a business out of it? Like, was the goal just to pursue it as a hobby, or was the goal always to, make this your full time?
Yeah. So the goal definitely was to make it a full-time job because I didn't like the structure of corporate America at all. And I knew I wanted to just have a flexible lifestyle. I wanted to maybe do some work that was creative. And then I also like technology. So it was a good mix, merging of my two interests together. And then even with me for corporate personally, I know some people are able to make career changes easily, but I couldn't. Like, I took that first job in sales, and pretty much on my resume I was just pigeonholed into sales, and no matter what I tried for switching to another department or something like that, maybe marketing, where it possibly could have been a little more creative or something that I could have liked better, I could never get those jobs. So I was like, okay, this isn't going anywhere. Plus I could just really live the ideal lifestyle anyway with the flexible skill that I can use on my own. And then I like that you can work with people from anywhere. Like, I don't have to necessarily see them in person to be able to work for them and make money with them. So.
Mm-hmm. So how did you figure out, like, once you had this idea that you could make this your reality, how did you figure out who you were going to target and like start getting those first clients?
Yeah, so that part, I do feel like when I started out, that kind of goes a little bit back to the business side of it that I feel like I didn't know as much about.
Okay.
Because what I started out doing, I just started just posting about it, just like, hey, I do websites, and like kind of giving website tips, and just whoever approached me, I just pretty much just took them on. So
I feel like it's like that for all of us in the beginning, right? Like, we always just have like that. Yeah. Whoever wants us can have us type of mentality until we start refining our approach.
Yeah, exactly. Because I do feel like now, because I just took it full time. When did I took it full? In September. Yeah, September last year. So now that I'm kind of nearing almost towards a year, I'm trying to get narrowed in my focus of who I'm targeting now. But I do feel like you kind of have to work on a few projects first to see which kind do you really like working on. So I definitely got a lot of exposure to different types of projects, and I like the coaching and consultant space a lot better because I guess I kind of know the space good. I feel like I've consumed a lot of self-help books and stuff. So it kind of goes along with my interests and stuff too. So I was like, I think I'm going to kind of hone in on that now after kind of having an array of projects in the beginning. So.
All right, so let's focus in on your expertise, which I think is building really beautiful websites, right, for your coaching and consulting clients. What is the number one thing that if you're trying to design, I call a website like your digital home, right? What's the number one thing or the first thing that you should think about as you start the redesign or new design, rebranding process for your website?
Yeah, so I would definitely say a website to me is like all about communication. So it's all about like communicating. So who are you communicating it to? And then what are the benefits and ways that you provide value to those people? Because I feel like sometimes people just make like, oh, I'm so-and-so and I like photography. But it's like, well, the clients don't care that you like. It's like they want to know like, what kind of photography do you provide for me, or what's your specialty, or like what are you different with the photography that can help me? So definitely just benefits focused for sure in your communication.
So I know you have this really useful, first of all, you guys all need to follow Keshia on Instagram. The links will be in our episode show notes, but I love that you had this graphic that talks about the number one things you should have on your homepage. Because I think a lot of us sometimes are misusing our homepage. Like, I even know for myself, my whole Dreams and Drive website needs to be redesigned. But talk me through some of the things or some of the components that you should really have on your homepage, your landing page, that can grab people and help you see results.
Yeah, well, definitely that value proposition statement is, you hear people call it like a USP, unique selling proposition, or value proposition. It's the same thing. But all it is think of the top benefit that you provide and to who. So you could be like, if you're a coach or something, you could be like, I help women find clarity so they can advance their careers. Like, that's an example of one. I definitely want to have that, like, at that, I feel like in that top banner area with the nice, clean, captivating image there. And then, of course, the email opt-in incentive, because like 99% of the people who come across your site, they may not be ready to do business with you right away. So a good way to just get their contact info, get them into your email funnel, is to offer some type of incentive. So it could be like a checklist, a free guide, a free training. If you have a free audio recording, free video training, just anything that your audience would find valuable. And then, of course, a quick summary of what you do, because sometimes, you believe it or not, some people's websites, you're like, what do they even do? This is cute, but what? So then you have to like click over to a different page. So you shouldn't have to make people click to a different page to figure out what you do. They should be able to concisely see that on that home page. So maybe like a little quick snippet of summary of, I offer this for these people and this for these people, if it's two different paths or whatever it is your setup is. And then anything that can help pump up your credibility a little bit too. So that would be like any press features. So if you have any logos from press or testimonials, or anything like that, reviews are also good. Yeah, I think those are the main things there. Oh, and last thing. So if you have any content that you create. So a lot of times, like especially a service-based business, they may create blog posts, they may create podcasts. So you can maybe have links to like your first 2 or 3 podcasts or blog posts or videos on the homepage to help them know like this is some recent content that you've been putting out.
So having a homepage that like you have to scroll through isn't too bad, right? Because I feel like some people try to make their homepage super simplistic, or super minimal, but you're not really. It's like a waste of being minimal because nothing's happening. So having one that scrolls through and has all that information isn't bad.
Yeah, I don't think it is, because to me, I don't like when I have to like click around to different pages. I guess to me that creates not the best user experience. I think people who do that, they kind of are trying to be almost artsy and mysterious. But I'm like, if you have a business, you are communicating to your potential clients. So that artsy stuff, like that's more like if you have a hobby or if you're not really selling anything on the website. Maybe if you're not selling something on the website, or you don't care if people really sign up for your coaching program, or if they sign up for your e-course or whatever your course is. But if you're selling something, you definitely need to communicate effectively.
Okay. So how important then is like branding as far as, I think, define branding in the sense of building a website. What is it? Because I feel like branding has so many different terms depending upon how you use it. So when you're thinking of branding on your website, what should you be thinking about?
So I would definitely say branding really helps influence the quality perception that people have of your business.
Okay.
So a lot of times I feel like we don't realize it, but you know how I feel like sometimes you can go on certain websites and it looks kind of dated, or just kind of like it wasn't put together very well, or
you
maybe
can tell
just
it was made in 1997 and not 2019.
Yeah, and I feel like your perception of it is kind of like, their services must not be that great, or maybe this is like low budget. You know, you don't want people thinking in a negative way about what you offer. So really branding is just crafting the perception that you want people to have of you when they hit the website. So really the branding can be done through the actual brand design aspects, which is the colors, fonts, things like that, patterns. And then it can also be done through photography, because I do a lot of like telling my clients about how to get a good brand photo shoot, because sometimes people want websites, but then they get crappy pictures on there. And I'm like, y'all, like, this isn't going to work. So so it's just crafting that right perception through the photography and through the design on the website.
And that means that you need to invest in it, right? And I think that's a big thing. Like when should someone pay a professional versus do it themselves. So that's what a lot of entrepreneurs who are starting out, they're like, I don't have the funds, or should I invest in this? Is it worthy of my investment? Like, what would you say to that person?
Yeah, so I do understand when you're new, I do feel like it's best to just probably DIY just to get a foundation for yourself, because I've experienced with new business owners, even trying to design for them can be a little harder because they don't really know like who their target clients are yet, or they sometimes don't even have their packages and stuff put together, and they're coming to me and I'm like, well, what are we going to say about your coaching package? And they're like, I don't, they don't really have anything typed up yet. Yeah, so it's just kind of like you don't necessarily need to pay somebody thousands of dollars if you don't have stuff planned out yet for you to sell, because you won't see a ROI, return on your investment, for the website. So to me, get some leverage a little bit, like maybe test it out, test the waters, get a few clients first. Then once you kind of know what you're doing and you have maybe even money to invest in it, because websites can be a tax write-off if you actually have a legit business account set up, then to me, that's a better time to invest because you know who you're targeting and you're going to see a better return. You actually have something to sell on the website. So.
Yeah, you know what I found too? I feel like sometimes getting your hands dirty and trying it yourself, at least for me, you understand how to work with your designer better. Just even from a non-technical standpoint, from a technical standpoint, like if they say, what do you want above the fold? You'll know what that means, right? Or like exactly, a plugin versus a sidebar versus the footer menu, header menu. I feel like just getting yourself familiarized, even if you don't go on to doing it yourself, is really, really important.
It definitely is, because then you can I feel like understand the collaborative process with the designer, because sometimes people are like newer people, I feel like don't understand what the design process is like. So then they end up like, oh, can you change this? Can you change that? Can you change? I'm like, oh, this is irrelevant. So then you have to kind of get them back to the business focus, because people who are a little more established, they understand that it's a business thing and that you trust your designer to use their expertise. So yeah, definitely having that understanding is helpful for sure.
You know what I've always wondered, just because like my own personal website and the way I've learned to kind of do DIY websites have been on WordPress.org. So like the one that you can download your own themes and stuff. But like what platforms would you recommend? Because I feel like there's Squarespace now, there's Wix, there's all these little like build a website options. Are there ones that you would recommend people to play with as they're learning it?
Love Squarespace. That's actually how I started. I started my blog like 7 years ago. So Squarespace is really great. You can customize the templates, or you can just kind of use the template that they already have if you don't even want to mess around with customizing it. And then if you are going to go WordPress, there's a Divi theme that makes it easier to customize, because I know a lot of those WordPress themes are pretty much locked in stone if you buy one off of like a theme website. But Divi is kind of like a drag and drop builder, almost like a Squarespace or a Wix. So yeah, that's a good way to experiment with WordPress. And then Wix is pretty good now too. Like back when I started blogging, it wasn't as great, so I ended up going with Squarespace. But now I know it's way better with Wix. So yeah, so I would say those are like the top three to try out.
And Divi, is that just Divy? I just want to make sure when I put it in the show notes, I'm saying it right.
It's Divi.
So can you tell us about a time, Keshia, like that you feel like you were really able to help one of your clients transform their websites and ultimately transform their business? Like, you don't have to give us details on the person, but just maybe talk us through the things that you were able to change, like the leverage you were able to pull that really helped them see some results, just simply from a website.
Yeah, well, one client, she had an older website that it was just like a really short one-page site, and it really didn't even communicate everything that she had to offer. So she was a consultant, and then she also offered coaching, but the old website didn't even have coaching on there. She was also a speaker, and then the old website didn't even have anything about her speaking services on it either. I can't even remember. She had an email incentive. I think she maybe had an email incentive for her audiobook. But yeah, that was pretty much it. Oh, and then she even had a podcast, and the podcast wasn't listed on there.
Wow.
And then she had books. The books weren't on there. Like pretty much nothing was on there that the main action focuses that she needed people to take. So I guess it was just older, and she had come out with all this stuff later or something. Yeah, and then even the design itself was just really, really plain. So it was like no like personality, no cool like pictures that draw you in. After working with me, I created, gave her some tips on like the style her brand shoot. So she got brand shoot done. So now the photos look really, really great. They look way better and they captivate you and pull you into the website. And then now she has custom branding because her coaching targets like millennials, Gen Z. So her branding kind of had a lot of like that like sky blue, yellows type colors to kind of feel fresh and young, but still professional at the same time. And then now it actually showcases everything. So you can go on there and see she's a speaker. You can see her past events. You can book her for a speaking gig. And even with the coaching, like it talks about the program and what do you get in the program. And then there's a place to buy her book and to listen to the podcast all in one place. So she was recently telling me, she said she had a speaking gig coming up with American Airlines. And now she has a link that she's actually proud to give people like after she speaks. So she could be like, hey, come over to my website. You can learn more about coaching with me. And before she wasn't able to do that. So it would have been, I guess you would have just had to give them a phone number or a business card or something. But now there's a full website and they can find out about the program. And she feels a lot more confident to refer people over there when she meets them. So.
And that's so important because I feel like a lot of people are leaving money on the table or opportunities on the table because they don't have strong digital presence. Like if you tell me you are like an online coach that helps whatever, right? Like if I go to your website and it looks like it's from, 1903, like I'm going to say, can I trust you? I think there's a connection between trust and your online and your website presence.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely true. And then even the perception of quality, because I was recently reading an article that was talking about if your brand design is done well, people will understand your higher price tag. So like a lot of creatives complain about people not wanting to pay, but it's like, well, how are you presenting yourself? Are you presenting it professionally? Does it look trustworthy? Does it look high quality? Because then people can tell like, okay, this is good quality and I really want to invest in this. So
what's the connection between social media and your website? So like, I feel like some of us may be investing a lot of time on social media, but then it's not really driving people to our website. Like how should online business owners, dream drivers be utilizing their social media in order to really see results?
So I feel like to me, social media is almost like that starting point per se. And the website is where you kind of almost continue the conversation. I feel like I've heard people say like it's almost like an introduction. So different ways to get them over there would be if you have any content that you create. So like if you have a new podcast or blog post or something and you may be embedded on your website, you can say, hey, visit my link to go check out the content because people always want to know something. So a way you can help them. And then even if you just talk about how people can work with you, those are sometimes posts you need to make on social media because sometimes people just get so caught up in posting just to post, but you got to also tell people like, this is how you can work with me. And to learn more, click this link and then they can go over to your services page and see the services in more details and see your testimonials and understand the process to work with you a bit more. So I would say those are maybe your top two, like with that fresh content and then telling people how they can work with you and driving them over to the website like that.
You know what I like about your website? I mean, your social media, especially in your Instagram, how in your bio, you have that custom links URL. But a lot of people like use, like, let's say Linktree for that, but you use your own website. Like, what's the benefit of having a links page on your own website versus using like an outside third-party app?
Yeah, so the main reason I created it, I wanted a custom look, and then also Linktree crashed. And I heard I don't remember when it was, but then like every time you clicked on somebody's Linktree, it just had this little GIF with the little somebody in the office with the fire saying they would be back. And I'm like, okay, well, if people were really dependent on that and Linktree crashed one day, then people from social media can't just go directly to your website. So definitely keep that in mind. If you want to use a third party one, it may or may not crash one day. You never know. But
and I also like one of the reasons why, I mean, I don't have a links page, but I think another reason I would tell people is that you're able to then collect information. Like I have Google Analytics, so every visitor to my site counts. So being able to get that data on who's visiting my site is really important too, versus that data is going to Linktree when you're going to their platform, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Cause then it can help you track like all this traffic came from Instagram. Yeah. So that.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm not knocking Linktree, and I feel like it is a good platform. Even if you, let's say, you know, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that there's different things you should consider. So, Keshia, I'm thinking about your own journey then, like, what do you think is one of the biggest mistakes that you've made, which is building the business of Keshia White?
I feel like I try to view them as like learning experience of like more like, okay, don't do that again. But I feel like the only thing maybe is scheduling a little bit. So since I started doing this full time, coming from sales, okay, so a little quick background. I have been in sales for like 7 years, so I'm just used to people. They may be on the phone and they're like, yeah, I want to sign up. I love the software. And then they disappear. So, so I was kind of thinking that might be the case with doing web design too, because it's a little bit similar because I have consultation calls and all of that, and then proposals and contracts and almost the same kind of flow. So anyway, so with scheduling with that, I kind of messed up a little bit this spring and told a bunch of people around the same start date, and then had a lot of people starting and felt burned out and stuff at some point. So yeah, so now I'm going to be more intentional about staggering my start dates out a lot better because that was bad. But
how were you able to figure out the services that you offer? So maybe you can even tell our listeners like what their services are, what exactly it is that you do for your client.
Yeah, so with my services, I feel like I just offer what is the most valuable for them, because sometimes people are asking, sometimes they're like, oh, do you just offer a logo? But I'm like, well, what are you going to do with just a logo? Like you need more, or maybe like so they can go to an alternative route like a Fiverr or something if they just want a logo just to get off the ground. But I offer more that full service package. So it's just start to finish. So we do brand strategy where we'll talk in depth for like at least an hour about what's your brand like? Who are you targeting? What are your goals here? What are your revenue producing areas? Like what's producing revenue? So I know that. Then we go over to the brand design aspect of it, then to the website design. Then I even give them training on how to maintain the site so they're empowered there. So that's the only thing I offer now, because I noticed that was just made the most sense for people to give them that full solid brand transformation that they can really use going forward.
Okay. So you no longer do like the actual website build outs.
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah. So that's after we do the brand design part, then we build a website together. So it's just the full process.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I'm like, wait, you don't build websites anymore?
Oh no, I was talking about more like that one-off. Like just some people are like, you do a logo or can you do a media kit? I'm like, no, I don't do just random logo. Like I'll do a logo, but it's in that full package. It's not just like come to me just for the logo and buy. But
yeah, that's really important because I even get people like, I feel like sometimes when people know that you're skilled at, like you might have a lot of skills and you might be good at a lot of things, but your business is not everything, right? Like that's the one thing I've been learning too. Like I've even had people like ask me, hey Raina, do you, like, can you do this? Can you do that? I'm like, okay, I know that I know how to do it, but I don't, like people will try to guilt trip you into creating a service just for them. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's like, no, girl, I don't do that.
Yeah, because that's kind of why I messed up with my booking too. I feel like that was a mistake too, taking a couple of projects that I customized kind of for people, and I ended up feeling a little more resentful that I took it on because I was like, this isn't even what I do. Like, why? And then they ended up being more needy clients, and then I'm like, okay, you're being extra, and I made something custom for you.
Yeah.
So anyway, so you kind of learn as you go. So I was like, okay, you also have to create a business that works for you and your income goals. So if it's something bigger that you need to price at a certain rate so you can have rent money and money left over to invest, that makes sense for you instead of trying to accommodate people's lower budgets, because then you won't be able to support yourself if you do that. So
yeah, like I was going to ask you that, like, in the design world and the branding strategy world, like where do you think there's opportunity to really I guess make profit? Because I feel like sometimes, like, I don't know what the like pricing structure is in this world, but like for you as a designer and for other designers who may be listening in, like what advice would you give them when it comes to pricing?
So I would definitely say, like, after because I do understand when you're super new, like you may just do a few projects for free. Because I did that when I started. I just took on whoever, and if I got $100, I was like, oh wow, he gave me $100. So that was when I was still like had a day job, so it didn't really matter what I made off of it, and I was learning. Then I kind of went up to a little bit of a more beginner price, then pretty much doubled it since then, because after doing my math, you just have to, I guess, do the math and be like, okay, with payment plans, because typically with design work, people are breaking it up into multiple payments over several weeks or sometimes a few months. And then you have to factor that into the mix, because I feel like I didn't really factor that in. So I would just say coming up with a signature big package, honestly, to me is the most valuable use of your time, because doing all that tiny stuff, like I said, like a logo, or people are like, oh, can you do a social media graphic? Usually they don't want to pay you a lot for that. So it's, to me, almost not a good use of your time to just take on those smaller things, unless you're doing it as a side hustle and it doesn't really matter how much you make.
So what's the vision for the brand now? Like what are some of the things that you are working on so that you can scale it? Or do you want to continue doing this while also having a full-time job? Like, what's the plan for you?
Yeah, so I've been doing it full-time since September. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to definitely keep with this, because it's no jobs I even like to even go back to. I hated all my jobs. But so I'm trying to scale up to get more experienced business owners for my design projects, so that it's more of like a rebrand process where they kind of have something out there. They know they need to update their brand for their new stage in business. And then for the beginner business owners, I've been working on a course I'm calling Brand for Success, that kind of walks them through like a DIY process to do it yourself. And then they would still have access to me of kind of like a mentorship call. I think I'm going to do those probably like bi-weekly. So if they do have questions, then walk them through the steps so they can kind of get themselves off the ground with some help, but without me having to do the projects, because it wasn't really working with doing beginner business owners because their budgets are smaller. And with me trying to make this a full-time business, I'm like, I can't do that.
And like now that you've gone full time, like what do you think has been like a really big challenge that you're even like right now working through? Because I know for me, even doing the podcast full time now, it's the creating different revenue streams and monetizing. Because it's easy to put out a podcast every week, right? But it's not always as easy to build the revenue stream. So that's something I'm personally working on. So what about you?
So I would say I actually just hired a business coach to kind of help me with the transition. But my biggest thing has been transitioning to attracting those experienced business owners with my marketing, because I've really been relying on like unpaid organic marketing. And while I attract leads like through there, but they're all the ones I'm attracting organically are like beginners and side hustlers, which I have nothing against it. But just for me to be able to make sustainable income, I can't continue to do projects for people in that stage. So I was like, okay, I got to figure out a way to get these experienced people. So that's been my biggest challenge, because every time I'm looking at my consultations, I'm like, how long have they been in business? I had that as a question on my consultation form. And if I see like it's not even started yet, I'm like, oh no, red flag. So definitely get into that. But I feel like once I implement the new strategies that I'm learning with the coaching program, I think it'll definitely get a lot better and more leveled out, hopefully at least by the fall. So
throughout this journey, Keshia, what do you think has been like something that you've learned about yourself and your own like ability to succeed?
I definitely learned that I'm more, I guess, capable of more than I thought per se, because I feel like I knew I had untapped potential, because the types of jobs I always had in corporate, they were never really using my real actual potential. I feel like it maybe just scratched the surface of what I could really do. Mm. So with having to just stretch myself so much, it's like, okay, I can learn this new skill. I can learn how to build this new thing, or I can learn how to master this new type of marketing. It's just like really, really stretching yourself and pushing you out of your comfort zone. And even with time, sometimes like I used to have certain limits on like how long I thought I could work, even though now I'm, after kind of getting burned out, I'm cutting back on it. But even just pushing myself longer with working longer than I thought I could have, where I used to be in the past like, oh, I'm so tired, I can't work anymore. But now, well, not now, but in the couple of months ago, I was like, okay, I can push through and I can get this done more than I thought I could, instead of giving up sooner or clocking out sooner, but
I think that's really important. Like, I feel like I forgot what there's this theory that like once you're tired, you can always give like a little bit more. Like, we don't really know what a true tired is because we can always push a little bit more. But I love that you said that you're also realizing that you don't want to reach a point of burnout, because then burnout, I feel like the productivity level is just zero versus being a little bit tired, but being burnout. Like, don't get to the point where you're constantly burnt out, because I feel like, especially as entrepreneurs, there's this whole like mentality that like, go hard or go home, team no sleep. I'm like, no, it's team naps, team get sleep when you need it. Like, not when you need it, get sleep every day. It's really important to our well-being.
Yeah, it's not sustainable, because that's partially why I'm pivoting with the business too, because I started thinking like, how can I sustain this? And I'm like, this level of working this many hours is not what I'm trying to do. I want flexibility. So yeah.
What does support look like for you? Like, how are you making sure that you're supported in this business, personally, professionally? Like, who's in your driver's seat, or what's in your driver's seat as you're doing this dream driving journey?
So I feel like, I don't know, because even though I am in a major city, Atlanta, like everybody I know is still in corporate, and I think they think I'm kind of like at home, like watching soap operas all day. So I don't know. So like the people I know I don't feel like they're intentionally not being supportive, but I feel like at the same time, it's just kind of like they don't understand it per se. So I honestly consume a lot of books, like in podcasts, from self-help books. Like, I love Jen Sincero's books. I love different podcasts with inspirational content for people who've kind of done things like what I want to do, because I find those stories to be more inspiring than just kind of sometimes people around you are like, oh, so-and-so had a web design business and he couldn't sustain it. He went back to work. I'm like, why are you telling me that? Like, I'm not.
I hate that. It's funny. Yesterday I told my sister, and this was just like I didn't really mean it per se, but I'm like, Naima, I'm going to open a restaurant. And the first thing she said was, do you know what the failure rate for restaurants are? I'm like, why are you leading with failure? Like,
I know. It's like our society just trains us to think in this fearful mindset, which keeps everybody stuck. It's like, well, you could be doing all these great things with your life, but you just let fear hold you back. So that's one of my big things too with business is mindset, because I feel like a lot of business too is some of it is tactical, like with how you market and the sites and stuff, but a lot of it is how you view yourself and what you think you're capable of. Because if you don't think you can do it, you're gonna give up before you even give yourself a shot. So definitely don't do that.
That is so true. I couldn't end this conversation on website and design and branding without asking you, what are some of your favorite tools, resources, plugins? I know you're a tech person that you think our dream drivers should check out.
So I definitely know for scheduling, like I love any scheduling tools that you could try, like Acuity and Calendly are super good for that, because all that going back and forth with people saying, what time can you talk? I don't know. What time can you talk? So that'll just help you cut down on a lot of wasted time there. If you want to put like a chat widget on your site, I always recommend Drift, Drift, for that. And it's like a free chat widget you can put on there if you want to get inquiries or help people out on your website in real time. I feel like those are my top two that you can put into the website that are kind of universal. Yeah. And then my other tools are more like back end stuff, like scheduling, social media type stuff. I love like Hootsuite for that. So you don't have to be posting every day manually.
So where can our dream drivers find you online if they want to connect with you or see your work?
Yeah, so they can find me at my website. So it's Keshia, Keshia, M as in Michelle, and then White, WHITE.com. So KeshiaMWhite.com. And then even Instagram is the same thing, at Keshia M. White on Instagram as well. And Dream Drivers, if you want access, I have a free guide on the 3 steps that you can take to take your website to the next level. So that way you can use it more strategically to elevate your presence online and get more sales. So you can click the link in the show notes and get that free guide.
Oh, you know what? That just reminded me of this question I want to ask you. You know how some people like their brand is their name versus their brand is like the name of not their name.
Oh, like a company name.
What's your take on that? Because I've had even people tell me like you should really just make your brand RainaCampbell.com. Like that should be. I do have a RainaCampbell.com, but I haven't updated it in so long. So I often get like people saying like the brand is Raina Campbell and Dreams and Drive is my platform. Like, what's your approach to that, or what's your thought on that?
So to me, it kind of depends on like what's your goal, I guess, with the brand. Because if you have a name that literally would only make sense for one type of business or one type of offer, then that kind of pigeonholes you a little bit, like if you want to come out with something else later. But to me, the name part is kind of more just easy if you want to maybe have different branches underneath your name, and just don't want to, honestly, to be candid, I couldn't think of anything to name my stuff. So I just ended up putting my name on it. I don't have time to stress about a name. I'm just going to put my name on there and put these services out into the world. So kind of depends on your end goals there.
So let's go into our lightning round. At this point, I'm just going to give you a prompt, and I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to mind. And remember, we're sticking with our dreams and drive metaphor, okay?
Okay.
All right. So the first word is park.
Park. So maybe for dreams and drive, park. I don't know. I guess park, I think of like maybe like giving yourself a break or something, a refresher, and then getting back and drive later after your break is over with.
Reverse.
Maybe reverse, like as far as dreams go, like if you do feel like something you made a mistake or something didn't go as planned, you can always reverse it and start over again and try a new way and get back on track too.
Neutral.
Maybe neutral. I feel like neutral almost reminds me of like a break too. Like if you want to take a midday snack break or something, and then come back to your computer refreshed and ready to work on the dreams again. So,
and then last but not least, drive.
So drive to me is just going full force ahead. Like you have your action plans, you know what the goal is, and you are ready to just put everything you have into it to make those goals happen for yourself.
Right. And if you want to be a dream driver, you have to have your keys to success. So, Keshia, can you tell me 3 things that you think every dream driver needs in their toolkit? But let's put a twist on it, in their digital toolkit.
So definitely just some type of website, even if it's just one page or something, just to start out with, like that can work for you to just get yourself off the ground. And then definitely an email service provider. So MailChimp is a great free one because email has a higher conversion than social media. People don't think about that, but most people on social are just scrolling. They're not looking to actually buy something oftentimes. But on email, it's like 3 times the conversion. So you want to grow your email list. And then what would be a third thing? I would say maybe if you are designing yourself, Canva is a good one to use. So even with my clients, like once I make quote graphics for them, I always send them over to Canva to put their words on there. So Canva just gives you the ability to make your own graphics to promote your business online without having to have like Photoshop, because it's free too, so you don't have to pay for it. So
yeah, they have really good templates. I love Canva. I feel like Canva is like one of the best inventions of the 21st century for online people. And I like hearing her story. Melanie, I forgot her last name, but I listened to an episode that she did on how I built this, and just even hearing the story of how she built Canva was pretty inspiring. Well, thank you so much, Keshia. This has been such a pleasure chatting with you. I really enjoyed it.
Yay, thank you. And thank you so much for having me. It's been great chatting with you too.
All right, so that's a wrap for episode 208 with Keshia. I hope you enjoyed hearing her dream driving journey as well as her keys to success. And if you love this episode, please share it with a friend. I count on you guys each week to share these episodes and to get the word out. I can only do so much by myself, but with the community behind me, it means so much. Make sure you're posting to Instagram stories, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, sending via text, email, wherever. Just share it with one person that you think could benefit from Keshia's tips on how to revamp your online branding presence. Also, guys, make sure that you're subscribed wherever you're listening. Hit the subscribe button so that you get notifications every time we have a new episode. And if you're listening in on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rating and review. I have been asking you all to do it, and we finally have a new review that I want to read to you, and it really means a lot to me. This is coming from Feeling Phyllis, and she says, motivating, inspiring, one of the best. And her review is, I've listened to a few podcasts on money, finances, self-improvement, entrepreneurship, etc., and this one has quickly become my favorite. I'm going back to listen through every episode. The guests are interesting, the questions are thoughtful, and every episode is motivating. Because of this podcast, I finally pulled the trigger on going into business for myself. Raina is real, and I have a better understanding of the good and the bad aspects of becoming, my one word. Thank you, Raina. You are changing lives. Thank you, Phyllis. You don't even know how much those words mean to me. I tell you guys this every week, but this dream driving journey is definitely a journey. And ever since I became a full-time entrepreneur, there have been so many times where I've been full of doubt. So getting your feedback and knowing that this little podcast, as we would say in patois, Jamaican patois, this dega podcast, right? This little podcast means so much to me, and to know that one person is impacted so profoundly really helps me know that this is part of my purpose. And I know there's more than one of you who love the podcast every week. So please keep on leaving reviews, keep on leaving ratings. It helps other people learn about the podcast, and I appreciate it so much. Remember, we are having a Dreams and Drive Happy Hour meetup on July 26th at Intersect by Lexus, and that's going to be from 4 to 7:30 p.m. So if you're in New York City and you want to come out, please RSVP. It's a free event. Just go to dreamsanddrive.com/events. That's dreamsanddrive.com/events with an S. And RSVP. I'm looking forward. We already have a bunch of RSVPs, so I'm really excited to know that you guys really want to meet me and chill and meet other dream drivers and meet past guests. I think it should be a fun time, and hopefully we'll have some surprises. I'm still working on some things behind the scenes just to make sure that the experience is as elevated as possible and also just chill at the same time. Lastly, if you're not on our weekly newsletter, The Keys, you don't get our weekly emails and you want to, you can always sign up anytime. Just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. I send out weekly emails. I've been getting better. I've been being more consistent. So make sure you come on over and join the community, and you'll also get first dibs on all these exclusive stuff that are happening. So if you were on the email list, you would have already known about this event from last week. So guys, once again, I say this every week. I hope you're inspired. I know that it's July. Half the year is over, but you still have another 6 months to smash all your goals and to really achieve all that's on your vision board for the year. Keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in episode 209. Bye, guys.